Welcome back to the Adventures of the Monad, which will look at life, the universe, and everything. My name is Kazim Kamal-ur-Rahim. In this series, I ask the question, where do we come from? Who are we? And where are we going? I post one presentation a week. Please subscribe to my website and hit the bell icon for notifications of future videos. You can also leave comments and join in forum discussions on my website. In my examination of the physical etheric body, I was at pains to point out that the animating force that keeps us alive is not oxygen and the electrochemical processes of our nervous system. Instead, I postulated that a force, known as Prana, enters our etheric body through a chakra and is stored in our pancreas. This stored energy is distributed around our bodies at night to repair our organic cells. This chakra is also active at all times, ensuring that the tertiary atoms and molecules are animated in our physical bodies. Because the connection between the physical and etheric bodies is achieved through the function of an organ called a chakra, I devoted a whole presentation to these vital structures. I mentioned that chakras are to be found in all the three envelopes of incarnation: the etheric, the emotional, and the lower mental. Here, all the main chakras match with their counterparts in the subtle bodies. There are a further 3 chakras in the causal body. If, however, you think that the causal body and mental body are a single structure, then you have a complete alignment between all the chakras. In the case of the lower and the higher mental bodies, this continuous link is not established until enlightenment, I3. I now wish to go on and talk about the emotional body and what its function is in our evolution. In the past, I have talked about the emotional plane and the emotional world. Now, we are down to the envelope that just surrounds us. What does it do, and why is it so important to us? The emotional body is where the self makes most of its choices. Just a quick recap. We are currently a first self, which means we function in the first triad and have our controlling focus in the second triad. The second self functions on the second triad and has its controlling focus on the third triad. You get the general picture. I have previously mentioned that the majority of monads incarnated in the human kingdom today are functioning through their 48-1 permanent atom. These souls are at the 2 community or 3 cultured stage of development. This means their principal focus of consciousness is in their emotional envelope. What is the soul learning when it has this as its main learning environment? The answer is that in the emotional world, we learn to understand duality. This means we are aware of the pairs of opposites: good and bad, happy and sad, pleasure and pain, courage and fear, forgiveness and revenge, certainty and doubt. How would you describe an emotional thought? They are subjective, opinionated, and judgmental. Why? Because all emotions boil down to attraction, call it love if you like, and repulsion, which is hate. At the lower levels of our evolutionary journey, we tend to think that something is good when it satisfies our egos. We think it is bad when it does not. As we move the focus of our monad into the higher molecules of our emotional body, our definition of what is good changes. Good is now defined as being when something is morally right and bad when it is not. What is more, this judgment is made irrespective of how that event affects us. So we can characterize emotional life as an ongoing struggle between the forces of attraction and repulsion. Here is a piece of information that very few students of esoterics know about and is worth bearing in mind, even if it is very depressing. When monads come into the universe from the antiverse, I mentioned that they get one of 7 different spins, which equate to the 7 rays I have already spoken about. Okay, so you are on one of these 7 rays. You will also be influenced by all the other rays as you evolve your consciousness through the universe. However, another orientation seems to underlie the fundamental existence of each monad. They are intrinsically either attractive or repulsive. Mercifully, most of the monads in the universe have an attractive orientation. However, there is a minority of monads that are intrinsically repulsive. Why should this be the case, I do not know. Now, use your wildest imagination and guess the makeup of most of the human monads evolving on this planet. From what I have gleaned from my studies, this planet is a corrective educational establishment. It services not only our solar system, but another 6 solar systems that form a bigger confederation. The rest of these systems and our own decided to dump their garbage somewhere, and this planet was the result. Looking at our basic nature and our history, this should not really come as a surprise to you. This is why we just do not want to cooperate with one another. We seek out differences rather than share commonalities. We just do not seem to be able to help ourselves. I guess from the perspective of those older souls that are trying to facilitate our evolution, it is better to put all the rotten apples into one barrel than let us poison lots of other barrels. It is a sobering thought that elsewhere in the solar system and the galaxy in general, the evolution from one kingdom is overseen by the kingdom above it. When I talk about the hierarchy and how they are in charge of our consciousness development, I'm referring to a small group of monads that occupy 3 kingdoms above us. It takes that many layers of guidance to keep our show on the road. Even then, we get stern warnings from them that we could completely sink our boat if we are not careful. However, there is one silver lining to what would otherwise be a very depressing cloud. Because we are so repulsive, we learn very quickly. We have common sense beaten into us. Another benefit to the whole solar system and to the rest of creation in general is that we really explore the boundaries. When we finally get our act into gear, we have the potential to really shine. We have been there. We have done that and got the scars to prove it. Don't start polishing your halos just yet. We are still not out of the woods yet. Keep practicing though. We know the emotional body is the product of the first triad 48-1 atom. This atom is the basic substance for the entire emotional plane, and the same applies to our emotional envelopes. These 48 atoms combine to make 6 grades of emotional molecules, 48-2 to 48-7. So we have 6 levels of emotional consciousness. I have already discussed how the composition of our emotional bodies changes as we evolve. We start mainly with 48-7 and 48-6 molecules at the 1 young and 2 community stages of our development. By the time we reach the 4 compassionate stage of development, our emotional bodies are mainly populated by 48-3 and 48-2 molecules. Remember, when I talk about molecules, I'm really referring to elemental essences. These are our friendly little secondary monads that are evolving down deeper into matter. The human emotional body is a dimly luminous, multicolored figure surrounded by an ovoid aura of misty colors. The shape of this body is the same physical size as the human body and extends about 50 centimeters, which is 18 inches, from the body. If emotions are absent in a body, it registers as a misty white. For most people, however, their emotional bodies are normally dark red. This reflects the passion that is surging through their bodies. As the monad evolves, it refines its emotions, and the hue of the emotional body changes to reflect this. It tends to have a pinkish hue. The appearance of the emotional body changes into a number of color combinations when the emotions are raised. Anyone with objective clairvoyant vision would be treated to a real light show as people respond to their environment and each other. As a general rule, colors are heavier and darker in less evolved individuals and exhibit subtler pastel tones in more refined emotional bodies. When someone is happy, their emotional body brightens, and when they are sad, it dims. It can therefore be concluded that our emotional auras reflect the state of our consciousness. What is worth noting is that our emotions don't just stay within our envelopes. They leak out into the environment around us. Ever had a friend who was consistently depressed for whatever reason? Weren't they a joy to be around? Do you remember how the whole room just lit up when they walked into it? I think not. Their melancholy disposition somehow was able to affect you and even your own mood. This is because our emotional and mental bodies are combined at our current stage of evolution. This results in a tangle of elemental matter that we can project from our envelopes. We therefore have to conclude that our state of mind affects everyone we come into contact with and everyone we think about. We have to be much more focused in our thoughts and realize that it is just not physical deeds that bear consequences. As I have already mentioned, the emotional body is composed of secondary involving matter. This matter seeks to experience strong emotional vibrations. This does not make it bad. It just means that it is trying to strengthen the consciousness vibration surrounding its monad. It is waking up. The consequence of this is that secondary matter has a negative influence on our evolving consciousness. Most people try not to overcome these negative influences as they enjoy them too much. This is why most people today are at the second community and 3 cultured stages of development. One thing we need to bear in mind is that all emotionality is selfish. You may retort that surely love and compassion are not selfish, and to an extent this is true. However, to truly experience unselfish emotions, we need to be under the influence of our subtle body in the unity plane 46. We have not started to develop this yet to any great degree. We will come under the influence of this plane of consciousness when we have a preponderance of 48.2 and 48.3 molecules in our emotional envelope. This begins to occur at the 3 cultured stage. We now begin to express what could pass for unconditional love and start to overcome our selfish and egotistical nature. Our emotional bodies are responsible for most of our egotistical tendencies. The consequence of this is that our egotistical thoughts, feelings, and emotions distort our perceptions of reality. This causes us to take things personally. We have a tendency to identify with our feelings so much that we let them define us. At the 4 compassionate stage of our development, when the focus of our monad has moved to the 47.4 permanent mental molecule, we begin to see through the illusion of the emotional body and the emotional world. How do you define happiness? When people say they are happy, from an esoteric point of view, they are saying that they are free from suffering. How can you know what true happiness is if you are at the mercy of external events? Some people would describe their lives as being happy because they consider they live a full and active life. It could be argued that non-stop activity could just be a way of repressing an inner dissatisfaction with life. Such active people are spending their life doing rather than being. I'm not suggesting that the ultimate in inner peace and tranquility is to become a couch potato. But why do people not like space and time in their lives? Could it be that they are afraid that if they give themselves the time to think, they may reflect on what life is, what it means, and more precisely what it means to them. This idea may actually frighten them. Some people may not want to pause and truly reflect on life, as they do not want to take the next step in their evolutionary journey. Most people that fall into this category are near a developmental transition point and are frightened to take the next step. There is a difference between the persona's reluctance to move forward and the wishes of the monad focused in the causal sheath. When the momentum is lost in an incarnation, fate often intervenes and the persona is given a jolt. The most extreme example of this is a near-death experience. If you ever needed proof that there is more to life than meets the eye, that would be it. Guess who arranges that? Your guardian angel. Who needs enemies when you have friends like that? It is an old adage, but is often forgotten. Happiness comes from within. We seek happiness through external recognition, partnering with our soulmate, or belonging to the right social set. But in reality, what the monad is seeking is union with its own higher mental body. This is achieved at enlightenment and goes further when the monad transitions to the fifth kingdom after taking the fourth initiation, I-4. On the unity plane 46, the monad comes to experience what true love actually is. What we as humans think is love is a pale shadow of what it really is. Love originates from the unity plane 46 and not the emotional plane. Love is not an emotion, but a divine sense of unity with the rest of existence. Love is not temperamental, clingy, or dependent on conditions. We only really sense unconditional love when we hold our newborn child. It rapidly becomes conditional after that. The amount of love we show to others is related to how they make us feel. This is a selfish kind of love. Love can't be lost, yet how many people fall out of love? Love starts to blossom when we love ourselves and love others, putting their needs co-equal to our own. Falling in love means your rational mind is temporarily overcome with emotionality. Sounds harsh maybe, but if you truly maintain the first flush of love throughout a relationship, you would burn out. I personally understand what love means when I consider the term unity. For me, love is unity. This is when you realize that you and the other are one. This becomes self-evident on the unity plane 46. Here the monad first enters into a group relationship with usually another 8 monads. This group shares one conscious body. All the thoughts, knowledge, and experiences are shared. There are 6 dimensions on the unity plane, and rather than viewing the world externally, you unite with it. Once the other and you are one, there is no separation, and in that unity you come to know true love. Over the course of my presentations, I have looked at emotional matter in 3 ways. The first was as a plane of matter that extends throughout the solar system. This plane is composed of 48 atoms that are further differentiated into 6 molecular sublevels. The emotional plane is a subset of the cosmic physical plane. This plane is found around star systems, but not in deep space. Why? Because, for example, in intergalactic space, there are only 1 atoms to be found. The next place we find emotional matter is around the physical globe. Why? Because this globe is the body of a cosmic being known as the planetary Logos. This Logos is evolving itself, and it has a body. It just so happens that we dwell in this body. You could think of us as the bacteria in its gut, giving it indigestion. In reality, we are its brain cells, but that must be no more comforting for the Logos to know. Thinking of ourselves as a bad case of wind seems more appropriate. The final field of emotional matter has been covered in this presentation. This is the matter that exists in our personal envelopes. This emotional world within the confines of our bodies is populated by elementals, and we attract those elementals that resonate to our level of consciousness. You are not what you feel, but you are responsible for how you feel. Getting to grip with your emotions starts when you decide to let your mental body take the lead in your interactions with the world around you. This is the topic for my next presentation. If you wish to read a transcript of the presentation or leave a comment, links to my website are in the description box below. Thank you.